there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a Western practical astrologer. Okay, so following on from my most recent videos about the Sagittarius mythology and the Sagittarius symbol, we're also going to explore the mythologies tied to the 7 centaurs in astrology. Stay tuned because we're going to get into it, and I'm so excited to share this information with you all. But before we do, definitely make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and click the bell. And if you are interested in booking a reading with me, if you're interested in any of my services, then you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. There you can also find my practical astrology ebooks, guide, merch, cheat sheets, all that good stuff. All the links to these products will be in the description box down below. And if you want extra astrology content early, as well as daily forecasts and PDF guides, then you can head on over to my Patreon. And I just want to say thank you so much to my patrons over there. As always, I hope you find this video to be helpful. Let's do this. Okay, so I just want to give a shout out to astrologer Melanie Reinhardt and to the YouTube channel Solar Power Health. They have some great videos about the centaurs in astrology, and I will link those videos down below. I will link all of the sources that I use in this video in the description box. All right, so yes, like I said, following on from my most recent videos about the mythology of Sagittarius and the symbol of Sagittarius, I wanted to explore the centaurs in astrology. Keep in mind that we talked about the mythology of Chiron and how Chiron is linked to the constellation of Sagittarius. Sagittarius's symbol is the centaur, and Chiron is known as the wounded healer. He was a noble centaur in Greek mythology. And also remember the minor planet Chiron, which can be located in your birth chart. We will be touching on this today. So let's start off by exploring the astronomy tied to the centaurs. The centaurs are a group of minor planets that are said to have originated from the Kuiper belt. Now, the Kuiper belt is a circumstellar disk in the outer solar system. The Kuiper belt is similar to that of the asteroid belt. Now, the asteroid belt is a torus-shaped region in the solar system, and it spans the space between the orbits of the planets Jupiter and Mars. This belt contains asteroids like Ceres, Vesta, Pallas, Juno, and then there is also an asteroid called Hygiea, though this particular asteroid we have not talked about on this channel before. Perhaps we will one day. In fact, Ceres is the only dwarf planet located in the inner solar system. Yeah, that is right. Ceres is technically a dwarf planet according to NASA. Ceres is also the largest object in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Anyway, the Kuiper belt is different to the asteroid belt. This belt is much larger. It is massive, actually. It is very wide. This belt is home to dwarf planets like Pluto, Haumea, and Orcus. Yes, Pluto is technically a dwarf planet discovered in 1930 and identified as a planet. It was reclassified from planet to dwarf planet in 2006. From this information, I can see why some astrologers use Ceres as a planet in the birth chart rather than as an asteroid. So yes, the Kuiper belt is a ring of bodies beyond the orbit of Neptune. And this belt was discovered in 1992. That was actually the year I was born. How about that? See, the centaurs are said to have sort of arrived into the solar system through the Kuiper belt. And according to Melanie Reinhardt, Pluto is the king of the Kuiper belt. She also goes on to say how Pluto, of course, aka Hades, is known as the god of the underworld. And what she said in the previous point, so looking back to that previous point there about how Pluto is the king of the Kuiper Belt, well, this connection, it kind of came to my mind as well when I was looking into this. So it is fascinating to think about, isn't it? And there does seem to be these connections then between Pluto and the centaurs. So what we're going to do is we're going to explore the 7 main centaurs. But before we do, let's talk about the connections between Pluto and the centaurs. There seems to be something significant about how Pluto is seen as the god of the underworld, and how the Kuiper Belt is it's just so far out, right? It's located in this super dark area, this darkness of our solar system, so to speak. And then just to ponder over how the centaurs came through the Kuiper Belt, almost like these centaurs were sent by Pluto, or like they're working with Pluto in some way. There is some type of relationship. And the thing about this is the underworld quality to Pluto and how it's linked to the unconscious in astrology. Consider how Pluto indicates our subconscious, our fears, our unresolved trauma, which is buried, very deep in our psyche. And so could it be suggested that the centaurs are also linked to the unconscious? In my video, 3 mind-blowing facts about Pluto that will change your perspective on Scorpio. Definitely make sure that you check out that series, by the way. Of course, Pluto rules Scorpio in astrology, just to clarify. Well, in that video, I talked about how this dwarf planet has snow-capped mountains that look like they belong on Earth, and that these snowy tops are made of methane frost. Then the winds on Pluto are driven by frozen nitrogen. Scorpio, of course, is this fixed water sign, which points toward our suppressed and deadly emotions. It's a sign tied to things like trauma, pain, suffering, betrayal, hurt, feeling powerless. Consider how often we subconsciously stuff our emotions down. Scorpio is so much about emotional vulnerability, personal power, right? Thinking about your personal empowerment here. It's also about intimacy. It's about trust. It's about bonding. And so perhaps the frozen methane on Pluto is a representation of how deadly suppressed emotions can be for us psychologically, emotionally, physically, spiritually, but we also transform. We can go through these renewals. We can heal. And so wherever Scorpio is in your chart, well, this is going to show you what you keep hidden, what is buried, what is locked away deep in the subconscious. Perhaps because such emotions were much too difficult to process at the time. Think about a child subconsciously denying their emotions because, well, they needed to survive. It goes back to the traditional ruler of Scorpio, Mars, the whole fight or flight, like survival, this type of stuff. Our instincts. Such stored emotions are then carried forward into our relationships. And so when we turn our attention to the centaurs, this is about bringing awareness to our pain, our suffering, our hidden emotions, what is buried beneath. We can experience moments of enlightenment. We can become awakened, reborn, as it were, when we consider the archetype of Scorpio. But the thing about this is, this process is not black and white, nor is it straightforward. Therefore, when it comes to working with the centaurs in your chart, this is not about a one-way fix or a moment of, aha, I am fully healed, I'm fully over it, I'm moving on. No. Plus, I strongly feel the need to mention that when it comes to exploring the psyche and working through any grief, any pain, any trauma, see a professional about these matters. Do not just believe everything you read and see online. The stuff you see online is not in alignment with your personal experience. You have to think about the context. Even just take what I say today with a huge pinch of salt. This is me passing on information about the centaurs with the intention of shedding light on their qualities and their functions, but it's about you doing that inner work. It's about you and your personal experience, your own unique experience, the context which is your life, okay? And professionals such as counselors and psychotherapists, they have the credentials to help you through your unconscious. Okay, so with all of the disclaimers out of the way, let's explore the 7 centaurs. Now, again, shout out to Solar Power Health, because thanks to her video on this topic, I discovered these centaurs and I could look further into them as well. But before we do go further into this, just one more thing. Melanie Reinhardt says that when exploring the centaurs, this isn't about trying to peg them down. This isn't about associating certain characteristics to them, qualities to them, like you do with the planets and so on. And my view on this is that, this is really about your own healing journey, your own transformations, how we reinvent ourselves. We fall apart, but we also rise like the phoenix. This is a process, okay? This is very much a process when it comes to the unconscious, and it is important to feel through the experience as well, rather than trying to approach these experiences using rationale and logic, rather than being super, super heady, okay? It's more about that emotional process that we go through. Okay, so let's first start off by talking about the most well-known centaur, Chiron. Chiron is the chief centaur, if you will. But just to recap here, okay, so we did talk about Chiron strongly within the Sagittarius videos, the most recent videos, but just to recap, Chiron was wise, he was just, he was a teacher, a philosopher, and was well versed in things like medicine, music, hunting. He was educated and raised by Apollo and Artemis, and he also transcended his animal side. But on the other hand, he was an outsider, saddened by his differentness. Now, the story goes that he was wounded by a poisoned arrow. In some versions of the myth, Chiron was pierced with an arrow belonging to Hercules, but it had the blood of the Hydra on it. But then in other versions, a poisoned arrow was accidentally shot by Hercules whilst they were under attack. But Hercules bargained with Zeus. He asked to exchange Chiron's immortality for the life of Prometheus. Chiron was then granted the gift of immortality for his wisdom, and so he could not die, but the wound still remained. Chiron was the wounded healer, a sage who could share his wisdom and his knowledge with the world, but according to Liz Green, because of his injury, he understood the very nature of pain. And so he was the healer, a healer, but could not heal himself. So when exploring the function of Chiron in your birth chart, this can show where we experience rejection, where we are sensitive to rejection, where we feel like an outsider, like an outcast. Chiron shows how and where we have been deeply wounded and hurt. But just as Chiron was known for his wisdom and his healing abilities, your Chiron sign indicates how you gain knowledge and experience and wisdom from what you or from where or how you have been wounded. This insight can then assist you in helping and understanding others. Assisting others can also help you understand yourself. Chiron in the chart can point toward problem solving, fixing, mending, putting things back together. It represents the part of you that feels or felt fragmented, broken, damaged. It indicates where you experience pain, rejection, and even abandonment. By integrating the parts of yourself that feel missing, so to speak, you can become more whole. And you can take personal responsibility. Chiron does not officially rule any sign. However, some astrologers believe Chiron should be associated with Sagittarius, so thinking about teachings, knowledge, and vision there, and that scholar-like quality to Chiron. But then others believe Chiron should be connected to Virgo, so thinking about healing, health, and practicality. Chiron, though, bridges the gap between the inner and outer planets, showing its function of integration. Big word for Chiron. It is an icy body that orbits between Saturn and Uranus, and it is referred to as an asteroid or as a comet, initially called an asteroid and classified though as a minor planet. Chiron was discovered by Charles Quail in 1977. Its proper title is 2060 Chiron. This minor planet is, well, it's about collective healing. Chiron is also said to be the bridge between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius, signifying a transition between the two ages. It is also the bridge between Saturn and Uranus, in my view. So, looking at these strongly collective themes, still, perhaps this transitional period between the ages is a representation of humanity's healing. Same thing could be said about the bridge between the world of Saturn and Uranus. Things like war, oppression, and destruction have polluted the world over centuries, suggesting that there is a lot that needs to be healed within ourselves. And in order to heal, accepting what is wrong is key. The healing process begins with acknowledgement, acceptance, understanding, practicing forgiveness as well. I would say self-compassion matters, and sharing our wounds and things like this can be quite beneficial, so beneficial parts of the healing journey. It takes Chiron about 50 years to travel through all 12 signs, and this cycle is known as the Chiron return. Chiron spends approximately 4 years in each sign. However, it spends 7 to 8 years in Aries and Pisces, and then about 1 to 2 years in signs Virgo and Libra. Still, the Chiron return is quite an eye-opening experience. Around the age of 50, we revisit our Chiron placement, our past experiences, our wounds, and we have an opportunity to address these matters. We can shed light on our own healing. So just drawing from my own placement, Chiron is retrograde in Leo in the 12th house in my chart, and I have been in psychotherapy for the last 3.5 years addressing my inner child wounds. It has been a process, a long process at that, but I'm really proud of how far I have come. Okay, so let's now move on to the other centaurs, the less talked about centaurs in astrology, which, by the way, there will not be as much information for these ones. Okay, so let's look at Pholus. The code you type into the additional object section on astro.com for Pholus is 5145. Now, when it comes to the other centaurs, I want you to remember that Chiron was an exception to these centaurs. He was wise, he transcended his animal urges, but centaurs as a whole were unruly, okay? They were rowdy, they were often intoxicated. Therefore, the centaurs in your chart can actually indicate your own inner chaos, right? The troublemaking that happens within, so to speak. What inner conflicts are going on beneath the surface. Though again, like I said, this is a process. This is not about a quick fix, but by embarking on our journey of self-awareness and healing, perhaps we can unlock hidden truths. And as the astrologer from Solar Power Health says, our hidden treasures. I love that. So Pholus was an Arcadian centaur. Pholus is famous purely for a single encounter with the Greek hero Hercules. The two were rather friendly together. Chiron and Pholus were actually siblings, but the two had never met. Now, unfortunately, Pholus was killed by a poisonous arrow. He was just going about his day, and then boom, he was poisoned. Hercules even decided to give Pholus a proper public funeral. And so Pholus can signify times when we are minding our own business, right? Just going about our day, walking through life, until out of nowhere, just events turn. Apparently, Pholus is viewed as opening Pandora's box. So thinking about a process that once begun and how it sort of generates many complicated problems. Looking at the chain reaction of events and how something small can turn into something pretty massive. Pholus also represents our impulses, and these impulses, they are partly conscious but mostly unconscious. Pholus shows us where we experience a lot of chaos, like inner chaos. But we can, of course, transform. We do this through compassion. But if we do not address such matters, we can be led down quite a self-destructive path. And so this is about us piecing the small pieces together, okay? Again, think about those small pieces and how they add to the greater whole. Pholus was actually discovered in 1992 and is the second centaur to have been discovered. Pholus is a Saturn-Uranus-Neptune crosser. Maybe even just consider the planets in correspondence with the centaurs as well. So when I talk about their orbits, maybe that's something to think about, especially if it is that, these centaurs can act as these bridges between worlds. So, drawing from my own placement, Pholus is retrograde in Cancer in the 11th house in my chart, and this makes so much sense to me because my early friendship years were not pleasant. There has been a lot of healing occurring throughout my adult life regarding groups and social circles, and then a lot of stuff is tied to my upbringing in this way, okay? Tied to my family. Though, as I am going through these, definitely make sure to let us know your own placements, okay? I'll even just show an image of the centaurs in my chart. So hopefully you can see from the image the different titles and things, but it should be pretty obvious when you put in the codes. But yeah, I would love to hear about your own placements. Okay, so let's now turn our attention to Nessus. The code of Nessus is 7066. Just as a disclaimer here as well, I'm about to talk about some really difficult information. I'm sharing difficult information basically, and I will be doing a lot of spelling out. So Nessus in the chart points towards cycles and patterns of Abuse, and this is a big deal. This is very much an asteroid of, trauma, okay? And not just your personal trauma, but also thinking about ancestral, okay? Thinking about the collective, thinking about breaking generational curses as well. So let's explore the mythology quickly. So Hercules needed Nessus to ferry his wife Deianeira across the river. But while Nessus was carrying her across the river, he tried to rape her. And so Hercules shot an arrow to kill Nessus. But whilst Nessus was dying, he gave some of his blood to Deianeira. He told her that she could use the blood as a love potion. See, apparently Hercules was having an affair with a younger woman, and so the idea was that she could use this potion to stop him. Potion. But you see, this of course was a big fat lie, because as soon as Deianeira suspected Hercules of infidelity, she became insecure, she was fearful, and so what she did is she soaked a robe in Nessus's blood and gave it to Hercules to put on, but Hercules was burned alive. Ridden with guilt for Killling, her husband, Deianeira, then, she killed herself. And so, what we notice from this myth is how Nessus points to themes of violence, revenge, betrayal, jealousy, obsession, abuse, infidelity, guilt, suicide. Keep in mind that such themes can be coming from others, okay, toward us, but also we can be acting in these types of ways toward other people, okay? So that's not nice to think about, I know. The process of Nessus also involves dealing with the power of lust and vengeance, but also thinking about how we can develop integrity and character through power over ourselves. Nessus is even seen as the ABUSER asteroid. Physical, psychological, emotional, but like I said, this is also about those karmic cycles, ending karmic cycles, the healing of generational, ancestral trauma. And what is quite fitting actually about Nessus was that it was discovered in the zodiac sign of Scorpio. Consider, what we have discussed so far about Scorpio here. This asteroid orbits between Saturn and Pluto and was discovered in 1993. So just drawing from my own placement here, Nessus is retrograde in Libra in the second house in my chart. And whilst I don't really want to share much information about this placement, which is understandable, what I would say is I resonate with this placement to a degree, and I am working through the body and self-worth conversations tied to such a placement. Okay, so let's now look at Asbolus. The code for this one is 8405. Asbolus could read signs in the flight of birds. He anticipated the battle with the Lapiths at the wedding of their king, though unfortunately many centaurs died. He tried to warn them not to attend the wedding, but they ignored him. They did not listen, and so therefore Asbolus in the chart points toward our intuition, our ability or inability to anticipate the future, what's to come, what events will unfold. So thinking about psychic abilities, gifts here that we have, do you have a strong intuition? But this is also about facing events that we do not like, knowing that a terrible event is about to occur, for example, and being able to sense what is coming and perhaps nobody listens or understands us. And because nobody sees what we see, we might feel quite alone, like outsiders. Yeah, we can feel like an outcast. Asbolus, though, was discovered in 1995 and orbits between the orbits of Jupiter and Neptune. Drawing from my own placement with this one then, Asbolus is retrograde in Virgo in the first house of my chart, and I can worry a lot about future events. I can have this doom and gloom attitude a lot of the times, and there are certain events I can sense coming, some good, not so good. I guess being an astrologer helps with this, but still I am not really going to tell others what I see. I would much rather observe and allow things to unfold as they should. Asbolus even creates a biquintile to the sun in my chart, and I have the sun there in Aquarius, so being more of an observer to me just makes sense. Next up, Thereus. So the code for Thereus is 32532. So Thereus is said to have pulled bears out of their dens. In the mythology, he was a bear hunting centaur. He could carry them home. He was even this cruel hunter, very disrespectful toward the bears, villainous, monstrous. But bears were even seen as symbols of the warrior. The native bear symbol represents things like strength, family, vitality, courage, health. And so Thereus can point toward our power to be, destructive, to be cruel, to be corrupt, to assert our power over others. And so this is about managing any sort of dangerous actions. But then again, do remember that people can act this way toward us. So I just want to clarify that. So yes, then again, this can also be quite an ambitious placement when used with awareness. This is the thing about it too. We can possess great power and strength. We can be courageous in this way. We might also try to impress people in authority. We might try to impress the experts. But this is about being both the student and the teacher. Just be aware of unhealthy aggression when it comes to Thereus. Now, Thereus was discovered in 2001 and orbits between Jupiter and Neptune. Now, Thereus is retrograde in Libra in the second house in my chart, and I can see how things could get out of control if I let them. Okay, so let's now look at Okyrhoe. To find Okyrhoe, you type in the code 52872. Now, in Greek mythology, Okyrhoe was the daughter of Chiron and also Chariclo. She was actually changed into a mare by the gods as punishment for revealing their plans to mankind. She was kind of like this prophet, okay? But the gods did not like this. They did not like this. And so what we notice with this particular centaur is our ability to foresee the future. Okay, there's that quality there. But no matter how much others try to put us down for sharing what we see, we're still going to do it. And we're going to do it based on our own principles. You sort of go against what society might say, what society might expect. You might even be bullied or attacked or criticized or heavily judged by others. But you can cope with the backlash. You don't care if you're unpopular, you don't care if you're not liked so much, because you're staying true to your beliefs. Basically, we say what we want to say no matter what. Okyrhoe was discovered in 1998, orbiting the outer solar system between Jupiter and Saturn. Now, Okyrhoe is in Aquarius in the 6th house of my chart, and I can see this pretty clearly. I mean, I already have so much Aquarius energy, but I think this only adds to my Aquarian traits and just being like pretty strong-minded about what I see. Yeah. Okay, so last but not least, Pylenor. To find Pylenor, you type in the code 1994. 1994. Now, Pylenor was part of Chiron's tribe. And you know how I talked about the death of Pholus? Yeah. Well, Pylenor was there the day that he died. Pylenor was wounded, and Pholus attempted to help him by pulling the arrow out. And so pulling the arrow out that had wounded Pylenor. But Pholus accidentally dropped the arrow on his own foot. And by the way, a riot occurred between the centaurs over wine. This is why all of this happened. Yeah, I know. They loved their wine, the centaurs. They couldn't get enough of their wine. Anyway, so Pylenor made his way to the river to cleanse his wound, but actually ended up contaminating the entire river with the poison from his wound. The poison then spread and made the river very, very dirty and unsafe. And so Pylenor in the chart looks at where we can feel like we make things, well, unclean, or like we are contaminated, right? Or like we contaminate things, basically. We make them bad, right? We spoil things. And so perhaps Pylenor shows up as infection in our charts. It signifies toxic chemicals, toxic waste, literally being poisoned in this way. Or perhaps this looks at times when we try to save somebody else but end up getting hurt. Or we end up making the situation even worse without realizing. But again, much like the other centaurs, this is about transformation, growth, healing, change. Now, we don't know the exact moment Pylenor was discovered, but there are some photographs from 1994, and Pylenor orbits between Saturn and Uranus, just like Chiron. Again, just drawing from my own experience with this one. So Pylenor is in Pisces in the 7th house of my chart. And oh my goodness, whenever I was reading the mythology for Pylenor, I thought, yep, I can see how that symbolism plays out within my relationships. Yeah, I am learning to not interfere. Not interfering is good for my own peace of mind. Certain people just are not my responsibility. I'm not supposed to save other people. And I can also see that by me interfering, I can make things worse. And then I also can see how with the Virgo rising energy, a lot of it is driven by my own anxieties and worries. But anyways, best to keep my opinions to myself during certain moments. Now, before we do close off this video, I do want to highlight just how much these asteroids / minor planets act as bridges. So you could look at it as bridges between the planets, bridges between worlds. And so do consider the orbits tied to the celestial bodies. That could be something to take into consideration. But of course, these are just my own thoughts and views on this. Consider which planets they orbit, basically, because I think these planets can provide more information about these bodies' functionality. And again, please let us know your own Centaur placements. Do you have any experiences you would like to share? Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so that concludes my video all about the 7 centaurs in astrology. Please let me know if you found this video to be helpful. Did you learn something new? I would really appreciate your feedback, and like you, I am always learning. You can find all of the sources that I used in this video in the description box down below. And I do just want to say once again, thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon. Thank you for your support. And as always, let me know your thoughts and your opinions about today's video. But with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And of course, if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then make sure that you click that subscribe button and also give this video a like if you did like it today. And I will be back with another video very, very soon.